What's up, members of the barrio? It's John coming to you from Greenwich Village, and a few days ago I polled you all about questions that you wanted answered on the community tab. Well, I got over 100 questions, so I'm gonna do my best today to answer some of them just for you. Question numero uno, and this one I actually didn't receive in the Q&A poll. This is one I have gotten so many times in my DMs and I'm finally going to address it. Are the New York City passes worth the money? And if you don't know what one of these city passes is, essentially you pay about $130 to get access to all these different popular attractions in New York. I'm not a fan of them for a lot of reasons. The big one is I don't need some list to tell me how to plan my trip. And if you spend $130, you bet you're gonna be going to every single museum, attraction, and point of interest that they list. And yes, some of them are really worthwhile, like Top of the Rock. But other ones, for example, Natural History Museum, you can pay whatever you want if you go to the counter. Or the Guggenheim, they have a pay what you wish day on Saturdays. Or the 9/11 Memorial, I believe it's Tuesdays that are completely for free. So that's one huge issue. The other one is, do you really want to have the same trip that everybody else is having? You're gonna have the most basic trip to New York if you just knock off every single top attraction and don't at least veer off the beaten path. I don't know, go eat some street food in Queens, go wander Washington Heights for some amazing Dominican food. Do something different than everybody else. I am not a fan of those city passes at all. Guys, we've been interrupted by a cute Boston Terrier. Team Adriana has been sitting out so many videos recently that instead of just filming this one, I want to ask her a question that I see asked all the time. Tell us where you're from and what your favorite thing is about New York City.
Okay guys, sorry I've been missing all these videos. I have other stuff to do sometimes. I'm from Mexico, San Luis Potosí. It's in the center of Mexico. Nobody knows about it, but it's a wonderful city, so you should visit it. My favorite thing about New York, and I always say this, is that you can do wherever, you can be yourself, because there is always someone else that is crazier than you, that is dressing crazier than you. So if you go out just dressing whatever you want to wear that day, nobody's gonna care. You can be yourself and you're gonna feel very comfortable on the streets. So that's my favorite thing. And yep, I love New York and I'm so happy to be in the videos again.
Roger S asks, from your videos, me and probably every viewer can see how much you love the city. At one point in your life, did you realize how much you loved New York? People I know or knew that live in New York at first always hate it, but something clicks and they wouldn't live anywhere else. That was honestly one of my favorite questions that I saw on the video, because I grew up in northern New Jersey, very close to New York City, but I didn't explore New York that much when I was a kid. I'd probably come a few times a year. I didn't really start falling in love with New York until I was actually out of college, back home in Jersey at my house. And I used to go out a lot in Manhattan to different bars. It was just my nightlife spot for the weekend. Bridge and Tunnel would be one way to refer to people from New Jersey, or I don't know, Long Island coming to New York City for an evening. But that was how I originally started to get into New York, and I never really considered it as a destination to live until my twin brother, almost 8 years ago now, wanted to move out of our parents' place to pursue acting, and he wanted a roommate to make his rent cheaper. And as a single guy at the time, I thought, heck yes, New York City, it's the best place to be when you're young and you're single, let's do it. I never hesitated, I just jumped into it, and it was the best decision I ever made. I have not regretted it for a second. MJR asks, hey, visited this city last month. A lot of your tips helped me big time. I'm actually visiting again with a friend a week before Thanksgiving. Any events or recommendations for a fall trip in New York City? I'm gonna make a special fall guide at some point, probably in September. But I would say a couple of big things for the fall. Halloween, the Halloween parade, huge, go march in it, did a video about that. Go to Central Park when the leaves are changing colors. That's actually something I didn't really do last year and I hopefully will do this year. Thanksgiving parade, if it's not 20 degrees like it was last year, also I've been told very, very cool. Just a couple of fall activities for you. Graham Glover asks, pedestrian as it may be, good word, how do you do grocery shopping? In my past, I worked in grocery stores. Today, I do the family grocery shopping for me once a week. I fill the trunk of a car, the back seat. If you live in New York, you're unlikely to have a car. Carrying the aforementioned load of groceries is fine if you are a mule, which I am not. How do you do it? Well, in New York, we tie the groceries around our backs. Like, you ever see those pictures from medieval? No. Actually, there's 2 ways you could do grocery shopping. No, 3 ways you could do grocery shopping in New York. The lazy way, but the most expensive, would be to use a service like Fresh Direct, where you just order your groceries in advance, day before, and somebody delivers it. You'll pay an upcharge for that. It's not a bad option. The second is if your supermarket does deliveries. I used to do this at Morton Williams. I would go shopping, pay, put it in the delivery section, and then they would bring it over. Now that we go to Trader Joe's, their deliveries are so slow. I always have to go with Adriana. We have a little cart, and I will carry 1 bag over my shoulder, and then we'll have 2 bags in the little cart, and we'll just wheel it 3, 4, 5 blocks to our apartment. So that works if you're within about a 5 to 10 minute walk of a supermarket. But in worst case scenario, you can always get delivery just about any supermarket, yeah. BJ Productions asks, where exactly in North Jersey did you live when you were a kid? I grew up in Fair Lawn, which is in Bergen County, about 20-25 minute drive from the George Washington Bridge. So it was basically a suburb of New York City. Blocker ZA asks, when's the least packed time to go to New York City season month? By far, it would be after the holiday season, so it would be late January, the whole month of February. You'll get the best deals on flights, you get the best deals on hotels, March too, because it's cold. That's pretty much the dead season in New York, but if you don't like crowds and you can deal with the colder weather, it's a great time to come. YouTube the 7th wants to know, what was your occupation before YouTube? If you ever moved out of New York, what city, state would be your top preference? What city or state have you visited outside of New York that most resembles New York City? My occupation before YouTube, I was a sports broadcaster on television and radio for about 9 years. A lot of people sometimes comment how my pronunciation is really good for the non-native English speaker, and they think that their English is getting better. No, my pronunciation, I practiced it a lot. So your English is still getting better though. The second was, have you ever moved out of New York? Where would it be? Honestly, I don't know at this stage of my life. There's not that many other US cities that appeal to me that much. I like Mexico City a lot. I could definitely spend some time there potentially, especially because my wife Adriana is from Mexico. The third one was, what city or state have you visited outside of New York that most resembles New York? I guess Chicago's skyline a little bit. There's not too many US cities that have a really big resemblance. London, outside of the United States, definitely gives me a lot of New York City feels though. Frady Fuchs wants to know, hello, is Bushwick safe enough for a graffiti tour with an expensive camera? Absolutely. They have specialized graffiti tours if you want to do that. I believe Free Tours by Foot does some. They're just tip-based. Or you could just walk around. I'm sure there's plenty of blogs out there that describe what the graffiti is all about, what the style is. So Bushwick's perfectly fine. In fact, I'm planning on shooting a video out there real soon. Kaylee Leonard asks, what is the best secret historical place in the city? You could ask a lot of people this question. You're going to get many different answers. For me, it was going to visit Fort Tilden, which is right along the coast, which was a military base, which specifically during World War II and the Cold War was used to defend the Atlantic if there was ever an attack. And you could still walk and see the remnants of the bunkers. I'm someone that's really into history. I find in World War II very intriguing. So for me, that's the best kind of secret historical spot. We did a video on it. If you are curious, it is on the channel. Bethany Coombs wants to know, love your videos. What are some of the places you would like to travel to in 2020? Well, for sure, Adriana and I are going to Mexico in 2020. Going to spend some time in her native country. Have a lot of things going on there. On my list, I would say Colombia. I'm also very interested in India. I would love to explore parts of Asia, Korea, South Korea. Very, very high on both Adriana and my list. She's a huge fan of the South Korean culture and the food. So of all of those, I think South Korea, after Mexico, you're likely to see some content from there next year. Harman Singh wants to know, love the channel, John. My questions are, do you have any regrets about moving to NYC? What compromises did you have to make? Is moving to NYC worth it? I think that moving to New York City is worth it if you want to be constantly stimulated as far as having the ability to make new friends, having the ability to date many people, having the ability to try different restaurants, museums, theaters. New York tends to feel like the center of everything, at least for me. There's always something going on. So I would say the biggest compromises I had to make were space, having a very small apartment, because I compromised space in order to be in a very prime destination in Greenwich Village. For anyone who's seen my 3 different apartment tour videos, you know exactly what I'm talking about. Other compromise is money. It's expensive to live here. Yeah, you could live cheap, but it's not necessarily easy, and you would have to either do a lot of cooking or eat a lot of cheap, unhealthy food. So there are a lot of way cheaper places where your money can go much further than New York City. Do I regret anything? Not a single thing. I don't think there's any city I'd be happier in right now at this point in my life than where I am right now, New York. Jay Corrier asks, do you prefer solo travel or with someone else? By the way, like your videos, man. Thank you, Jay. I prefer solo travel if the person I'm traveling with is not compatible. I have certain friends who you couldn't pay me to travel with. But I also am married and I love traveling with my wife. She's definitely my best travel partner ever. So ideally, I think traveling with one other person is a little bit less lonely, but I have traveled solo before, did it for my Cuba series, and I'm totally not opposed to it if I don't have the right partner to explore with. That's something always to think about. Just because someone's your friend or even your family member doesn't mean you guys would have a good time traveling together. Marina Chavez asks, great question, by the way. I'd really appreciate it if you could talk about how safe it is for tourists, especially female, to take the subway to go to bars and come back at night, for example. Is it safe? You recommend another transportation? I always watch your videos of what to do at night, get excited, but I wonder how would I get to these places and get back to the hotel later? Thank you. All right, Marina, great question. I have covered this a little bit on the channel before when I discussed New York safety tips. Check those videos out. I like to tell solo female travelers, especially if they don't have much knowledge of New York City, after midnight, don't take the subway. And there's a few reasons I'm gonna say that. One is that there's a lot less people out after midnight. 2, you're more likely to run into drunk people. And when the people are drunk, if they're intoxicated on whatever it is, they could more likely hassle you. I think your odds of being a victim of a crime specifically are very low, but you might not want to get extra attention if you're by yourself. I always tell solo females who don't know New York, just take an Uber, take a Lyft, take an Uber pool, take a taxi late at night. And if you do take a subway by yourself, go to a train that's either really crowded or go to the subway car that has the conductor sitting in it, just in case. Mark Rolovin wants to know, best honeymoon activities. You know, I think New York could be an interesting honeymoon spot. Maybe not the cheapest honeymoon, but a very cool spot. I'll give you some ideas. One would be simple, just a picnic in Central Park, something romantic, find an area that's not too crowded. Another would be to take a boat ride. Now, you have a couple of different budgets for this. A cool one that I covered on my summer guide was taking the North River lobster boat, try to find an area that doesn't have a lot of people, order a bucket of beers, enjoy a sunset view. That's the budget way to do it. If you've got some money to spend, I did a video last year about hiring a little, it's like a yacht, not even a yacht, it's a little sailboat, and you'll just have a captain, he'll take you around the Statue of Liberty. Not the cheapest thing in the world, but if you want to spend money on something memorable, it was very fun. Me and Adriana doing it, bring a little wine, have a sunset toast, some cheese, crackers, grapes. Those would be a couple of just options off the top of my head. Of course, a rooftop bar. You really can't go wrong with rooftop bars in New York. There's so many of them. Get a few good cocktails at sunset. Some fun activities for your honeymoon, and congratulations in advance. Foxrider12529. This is a unique question. I like this one a lot. I'll shorten it because it's long. Essentially, him and his wife bought a 7-day unlimited Metro card, and they had 3 days left, but they were trying to give it away on the subway, and nobody would even look at them, and people thought they were running a scam. I thought that was funny. What's the best thing to do with a Metro card that still has plenty of good use on them? If you approach people in the subway, what tends to happen, I think, is that most New Yorkers have their guards up when they enter the subway because there's just so much riffraff and potential for weird things you're gonna see because the whole city uses the subway system, so you could run into some very funny things down below. So I think people have their guards up and they're just gonna zip by you no matter how nice of a person you look like trying to offer them a Metro card for free. One thing you could try to do is find one of the many New York City Facebook groups for travelers, offer it there. Another, and I guarantee you this would work, just leave the Metro card somewhere that people can see it. Someone's gonna pick it up and test it, I guarantee it. Now, I don't know if it's the person you want to give it to who's gonna find it, but someone will put that Metro card to use if you just put it down, I guarantee it. Soldier76 wants to know, a lot of people say how much or what to tip, but they never say how. For example, if you ordered a beer, you tip $1. Do you give it at the time of paying when you get your beer? Do you tell them $1 is for them, or do they just take it automatically? It is something that is really worrying me. This is not just a question for New York City. This is a question that most international travelers from outside of North America need to know about. And I even saw my cousin visiting from Ukraine. He was asking me the same question. So here we go. If I were to drink at a bar, let's say it was $5 each for Corona. If I gave him 20, he would bring back change, and I would either leave $1 per beer, 2 singles, I would slide it on the bar, make sure he can see it. If he can't see it and he sees 2 singles, he's gonna know it's for him. Or if he's standing right in front of you, you could say, here, this is for you, or keep the change, or you could tell him how much change to bring back. The bartenders all know how the tipping system works here, so just make some kind of an acknowledgement if you want him to know that you left him a tip. But just $1 or 2 sitting on the bar, the bartender's gonna pick it up eventually. It's pretty easy. Jonosh asks, hey John, have you got a place in NYC where you often hang out like Casey Neistat does at and around his office? I've been lately in NYC, even at Percy's, but I haven't met you. Your videos were quite helpful for my New York trip. I'd like to know if you'd ever do a meet and greet for your subscribers. Kind regards from Germany. Thank you very much. Yeah, I don't know if I'm so easy to track down. When I'm not filming, I spend my most time in my apartment, which I don't advertise where that is. You are most likely to find me walking around Greenwich Village, actually in the Percy's area for sure. But as far as fan meetups, we did one with a couple of other New York City creators about 3 or 4 months ago. I would consider doing another one in the next 6 months. I don't know when or how, but if I do it, I will publish it all over the channel, so I guarantee you'll know when it is. Members of the Barrio, I hope you enjoyed that little Q&A. I got through as many questions as I could in the time allotted. If I missed your question, you can try to ask it again in the comments. Hopefully I'll have time to get to a couple of more. Check out my other New York City playlists and guides if you are new to this channel. Guys, thank you so much for watching as always. Until next time.